Hi everybody in Abnormal Psychology, Psych 266. This is the last video of the semester. It will cover Chapter 17, Personality Disorders, as well as a little review for the final exam. We'll have time for both, I promise, both of those topics. So, personality disorders, it's appropriate that this is the last thing we cover because it's the most difficult to understand. I don't mean it's so complicated that you couldn't understand it. What I mean is it's hard to know if someone actually has one. It's so much more obvious if someone has schizophrenia, autism, an intellectual disability, even depression or anxiety or bipolar, but a personality disorder isn't quite as obvious. You have to know a person's life, basically, even if you don't know them their whole life, you have to know about their life so that you can determine these 5 things. These are the 5 symptoms. First, maladaptive. We've gone over that a bunch of times, right? Your personality is maladaptive. Second, it's inflexible. You can't seem to change it no matter how many times your personality gets you in trouble. You keep acting the same way. Stable is the next word. It doesn't seem to get better or worse. If someone knows you for years on end, you've kind of stayed just like that and your personality has been a problem. Chronic. It's been like this since you were little. Maybe when you were very young, it was cute that you were that way, so self-centered or emotional. But the longer it goes, the less cute it becomes. It is chronic. It's been that way forever. And then the last word, pervasive. You act this way in a variety of situations. Home, school, work, friends, people you're dating, people you get married to, your neighbors, your coworkers. This is just the way you are. So, you know the abbreviation for miscellaneous, M-I-S-C, and then the letter P. That's the way I remember it. Maladaptive, inflexible, stable, chronic, and pervasive. So moving right along, if you're following along in the book, now we're going to go over them. Starting on page 533. Having those 5 personality traits, maladaptive, inflexible, stable, chronic, and pervasive, there are 10 ways that can manifest, 10 ways it can look. And there's an 11th one, actually, that is just undifferentiated. You have a personality disorder, but you don't fit neatly into one of these 10 categories. So let's go over them. Paranoid. This is a little different than the paranoia that people get when they're schizophrenic, because in paranoid personality disorder, you are paranoid about things that could happen. Someone cheating on you, your professor grades you too hard for no reason, your friends are talking about you behind your back, they're not really friends. Well, sure, those things can happen in real life, but all of those things happening to the same person, you are paranoid. You are suspicious of everything and everyone, and you don't trust anybody. These people make the worst counseling or therapy clients ever. Because you need to trust your therapist. And if you think your therapist is just another person out to get you, ruin you, mess with you, well then you're not going to make a good therapy client and you're never going to change, huh? Paranoid personality disorder, page 533. Next one, schizoid, or some people pronounce it schizoid, like orange or orange. Different ways to pronounce it. Oh, wait. February, there's a lot of words like that. So schizoid or schizoid. This is when people are not very sociable to a fault. Plenty of people don't like to be around big crowds and too many people, but what if you just lack social skills and it gets you in trouble over and over again? Schizoid. You've heard of somebody being a loner or a hermit. People use those expressions. That's what this is. You just do not know how to relate to people like you should. Honestly, people who have this to an extreme, this personality disorder, I don't know how they ever get a job. Don't you need to act all friendly and, oh, I would love to work here. This is just where I want to be. They don't seem to have those skills because they're kind of loners and what we call asocial. Not antisocial, we'll get to that. Asocial. Not sociable. They don't do well dating. They don't do well with family, with friends. They're basically loners. And it does get them in trouble in life. I don't mean legal trouble. I mean being able to accomplish things. Schizotypal. Think schizophrenia and think normal, like me and you, right? We're normal. What if you're halfway there? Schizotypal. That's what this is. These people are odd, eccentric, unusual, and it does cause problems in their life because it's hard to maintain friendships. It's hard to get jobs and keep jobs because you're just so odd, strange, different. It can be confused with high-functioning autism, yet it is different. It's very common with people with this condition to be obsessed with things like telepathy, ESP, space age things, lots of people like Star Wars and stuff like that, but to an extreme where this is you, this is your life. You ever been to Comic-Con or one of those conventions? Well, that's great to dress up and have fun like that, but if that's basically who you are all the time and you can't relate to other people very well because of this, you're kind of teetering on the brink of being out of touch with reality. Yeah, that's a problem, huh? By the way, there are people who get diagnosed with this and later with schizophrenia. It can happen. Moving right along. Antisocial personality disorder. Page 541 and 542, and then there's examples for a few pages after that. Anti means against. So, somebody who's schizoid, they just don't want to be around people. Some people call that antisocial. It's not. That's asocial, schizoid. Antisocial, you're against society. You lie, cheat, steal, manipulate people, take advantage of people. The real extreme cases, they're serial killers and people like that. But less extreme, they just like to take advantage of people. Think like used car salesmen and people who just try to rip you off for no reason. Do you know anybody you wouldn't trust your wallet or your purse in front of that person? Because, yeah, they're going to steal from you. Antisocial people. They can be very charming and manipulative, but watch out. You can't trust these people, even if they compliment you or say nice things. Almost all of them, in fact, I would venture to say nearly 100%, had conduct disorder as children. That's part of the definition, and there are very few who don't meet that criteria. So therefore, that's what you look for. Were you like this as a kid? Nobody could trust you. You lie, cheat, steal, hurt people. And now as an adult, antisocial personality disorder. Next one, borderline personality disorder. Couple of songs that you might have heard of. Madonna in the 1980s did a song called Borderline. I won't sing for you because it would ruin your day. But the lyrics are borderline, I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. That is what she was talking about. Taylor Swift, Blank Space. Watch the video, you'll see what I mean. Borderline, someone who's like this, everything for them is love, hate, and there's nothing in between. They love you or they hate you. So, you date someone like this or you marry someone like this, oh my goodness, you are going to have big ups and big downs and nothing in between. They're very unstable, unpredictable. There is a rage like nothing you've ever seen before. You piss off someone like this, look out. You don't know what they're going to do. Damage property, hurt you, say the most vicious things. Borderline. Unstable, but really they're afraid of abandonment. It's not shocking when someone is like this and you say, oh, I don't know if I want to keep going out with you. Oh, really? I'll kill myself. I'll kill you. That is actually rather common and expected from someone with borderline personality disorder. So if you know anyone who is that extreme, you probably have heard of this, maybe not even known it had a name. Borderline personality disorder. Moving right along. That was on 545. 548, histrionic, from the Freudian term hysterical, even though it's spelled differently, that's with an HY, overly emotional. And yes, borderline people are like that too, but in a different sort of way. Histrionic people are flirtatious, they cry, they laugh, they get angry, they get really happy. They basically manipulate people with their emotions. Now, isn't it cute for a little kid to like hang on the monkey bars at the park and say, hey, look at me? Well, if you're still trying to grab attention when you're in your teens, 20s, and 30s, it's not so cute anymore. Especially if you're always flirtatious, emotional, yelling, screaming, crying, laughing hysterically. And not that you have an emotional problem, it's that you do it to get attention from people. It's almost like you didn't get attention when you were little, and now you desperately need it. Page 550 and 551, narcissistic. Coming from the Greek mythology story of Narcissus, who was in love with himself. Well, that's what narcissistic people are. They have no empathy for other people, and they're basically in love with themselves. So, they talk about how great they are, and if you disagree with them in any way, they get really mad at you, because I know everything, I know better than everybody. And like I said, no empathy. You get in a car accident on your way to lunch with a narcissistic friend, and you call on your cell phone, hey, can't meet you for lunch, I was just in a car accident. Wouldn't a normal person say, are you okay? Do you need any help? Well, a narcissistic person would think of only themselves. What am I supposed to do for lunch? I'm hungry. You expect me to eat by myself? You just ruined my whole day. That's what you can expect from a narcissistic person. They only think of themselves and they want to tell you how great they are all the time. Moving right along. Avoidant, page 553. This seems like schizoid, but it's a little different. They avoid being around people basically because they're terrified of rejection. So, you work with a whole bunch of people and everybody's going to get lunch, and you say to a schizoid coworker, hey, we're all going to lunch, you want to join us? Oh, no thanks. They just don't have a need to be around other people. They don't know how to act around other people. But somebody with avoidant personality disorder, that answer might be very different. You don't really want me to go, do you? Who else is going? Well, they don't want to be around me, do they? They're so insecure that they're afraid to be around people just for a different reason. Moving right along, 556, dependent. Have you ever heard the term codependent? It really comes from this. That term was nothing new in the late 80s and early 90s. Codependent, dependent personality disorder. You get involved in relationships where the other person tells you what to do, you need their approval for everything. Maybe as a kid that makes a little sense, but as an adult, you don't make decisions for yourself, you allow yourself to be treated poorly. It's never surprising when someone who has this goes for someone who is narcissistic or antisocial, totally controlling of them. Dependent personality disorder. You hear of this more in women than men, but it could be either gender. It's not just a female thing. I want you to know that. Next one, page 558. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder, OCPD. This is different than obsessive compulsive disorder. Hand washing because germs are on your mind 24 hours a day, checking your doors and your windows because you're afraid of intruders, that's obsessive compulsive disorder. But obsessive compulsive personality disorder is quite different because what this is rigidity. You basically have to have everything on a schedule. You have rules for everything, for yourself, for everyone else. You can't stand things to be out of place. Oh, wait a minute. I put the book here, and this folder, it was here. It has to be that way. So, everything in your mind has to have its own place, its own set of rules, its own procedures, and if anybody gets you off schedule or puts anything out of place, it drives you crazy. So that's how you're obsessive compulsive. It's not like the anxiety-related condition because you think about something and it makes you do it. This is more of rigid schedules, procedures, everything in its place. You can't stand for anything to be any different than you think it is. Now, you might think someone like this would be a good student. No, they spend so much time planning and obsessing, they don't really get anything done. So it doesn't make them a good student, even though they're really organized and structured. So those are the 10 personality disorders. In the DSM-3, up to the DSM-3, I should say, there was one called passive-aggressive personality disorder. And what that was is a person who won't confront others and say what they're feeling, but instead they just do things behind your back and mumble things under their breath. That one was taken out of the list of personality disorders, even though it is still used and discussed every now and then. It's not an official diagnosis. Now, could somebody have more than one of these? Absolutely. And you could also have a personality disorder and other conditions, such as bipolar, depression, anxiety, or just about anything. Now that leads us into our last discussion. That's it for the book, but you will need this for the final exam. Exam number 5, it's only 30 questions because it's only over the last 2 chapters we did in the book. But exam number 6, you will be diagnosing people. I highly recommend that you go to the module for chapter 17 and look at the handouts that I've attached there with a paragraph explaining it. You will see on that final exam 6 stories in 2 different categories. Category A, the person only has one psychological diagnosis. And I gave you a list in those handouts that I attached of the ones we went over this semester. So you will look through there and say, is it depression? Is it post-traumatic stress disorder? Is it a sexual condition or a sleep disorder? You diagnose the person, and then the follow-up questions, you explain it. So you pick 2 out of the 3 in category A. Then there's 3 category B stories as well. You will also pick 2 out of 3. How is this more complicated? Because the people are dual diagnosed. They have a primary condition and also a secondary disorder. And the secondary disorder, pay attention, will always be either an intellectual disability, the person is just low functioning in general, or a personality disorder. That is what we just discussed today, isn't it? Either a personality disorder or an intellectual disability will be the secondary condition, but there will also be a primary diagnosis as well. So you get the most points, 4 points for diagnosing people, and then you get less points for explaining the symptoms and how you know based on the story. So again, 6 cases. You pick 2 out of 3 for category A, single diagnosed people, 2 out of 3 for category B, dual diagnosed people, meaning they have a primary condition and either a personality disorder or an intellectual disability. That is secondary to their primary condition. So 2 out of 3 in category A, 2 out of 3 in category B, and that's it. Don't forget to write your paper and submit that on Canvas by the deadline. Don't forget to put your preference for either pass, fail, or a letter grade. And that's it. We're done. Keep in touch and let me know what I can do to help you. Take care.